Don't drink that coffee. The security guard's warning that saved my life. The security guard's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist before I could take a sip. Don't drink that, he whispered urgently. Please, sir, pretend you're having chest pain. Right now. I stared at him, confused. Was this some kind of joke? But the look in his eyes told me he was dead serious. And when I glanced through the window of my hospital room and saw my daughter Emily standing in the corridor, her face pale and anxious, I felt my blood run cold. My name is Robert Whitmore. I'm 63 years old, a retired cardiac surgeon from Vancouver, and 2 days ago, I discovered that my own daughter was planning to kill me. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 weeks earlier, I'd gone to Vancouver General Hospital for a routine consultation. After my wife Margaret passed away from cancer 2 years ago, I'd sold my practice and tried to enjoy retirement. But the surgical team at VGH occasionally called me in for complex cases, and honestly, I welcomed the distraction. The empty house had become unbearable. That particular morning, I was reviewing imaging scans for a challenging valve replacement when my youngest son Patrick called. Patrick was 35, a high school physics teacher in Richmond, and the only one of my 3 children who still called regularly. Dad, I need to talk to you about something serious, he said, his voice tight with worry. What's wrong? It's about Emily and Derek. I overheard something last week. At Mom's memorial service. Emily was my oldest daughter. She'd just turned 41 and worked as a real estate agent in West Vancouver. She'd married Derek Morrison 5 years ago, a smooth-talking entrepreneur who always seemed to have a new business venture that was just about to take off. I'd never warmed to him, but Emily seemed happy, so I kept my reservations to myself. What did you hear? I asked, setting down the scan images. Patrick hesitated. They were in the church parking lot. I was getting something from my car, and they didn't see me. Emily was crying, and Derek was. He was angry. He said something about running out of time, and the old man's got $8 million just sitting there. Dad, I think they're in some kind of financial trouble. I felt a chill run through me, but I tried to stay calm. People say things when they're stressed, Patrick. Your sister's been through a lot with your mother's death. Dad, there's more, Derek said. We need that money before he changes the will. Once he puts it all in trust for the grandkids, we're screwed. Then Emily said something about you signing papers next week. That got my attention. Papers? What papers? I don't know. But Dad, please be careful. I've got a bad feeling about this. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the X-rays on my computer screen without really seeing them. $8 million. That was roughly what I had in assets, the proceeds from selling my practice, my investment portfolio, the house in West Vancouver, and Margaret's life insurance. I'd been planning to set up trust funds for my 6 grandchildren to make sure they had money for education and a good start in life. But Emily and Derek had been pressing me lately to give them power of attorney. They said it was just practical planning for someone my age. They'd even arranged for a lawyer to come to my house the following Tuesday to handle the paperwork. I called my middle son, James. He was 43, a corporate attorney in Toronto, and we'd grown apart over the years. Too many missed holidays, too focused on his career. But he was sharp, and I trusted his legal judgment. Dad, this is a surprise, he said when he picked up. I could hear the bustle of his office in the background. James, I need your advice. Emily wants me to sign a power of attorney, and Patrick thinks something's off. There was a pause. Dad, don't sign anything until I review it. POA gives someone complete control over your finances. If they have bad intentions. He trailed off, but I heard the concern in his voice. You think Emily would? I think Derek would. I ran some background checks on him last year, after the wedding. He's got a history, Dad. Failed businesses, some questionable partnerships. And I heard through a mutual connection that he's been seen at the River Rock Casino a lot lately. Big tables. My heart sank. Gambling. One of the few vices that could burn through money faster than you could imagine. What should I do? Let me make some calls. I have contacts in the Vancouver Police Fraud Division. If Patrick's instincts are right, we need to be proactive. That was Monday. By Wednesday, James had connected me with Detective Maria Santos from the VPD. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, with the kind of quiet intensity that came from years of dealing with financial crimes. Mr. Whitmore, she said as we sat in a coffee shop in Kitsilano, we did some preliminary checking based on your son's information. Your son-in-law Derek Morrison is currently $2 million in debt to some very dangerous people. I felt the air leave my lungs. 2 million? High-stakes poker games, mostly. He's been playing at illegal gambling houses in Richmond and Burnaby. These aren't the kind of people who accept "I'll pay you later." We've had reports that he's been threatened. His car was vandalized last month. A warning. And Emily? Detective Santos's expression softened. We don't think she's the primary actor here, but she's aware of the situation. We've been monitoring their communications. Text messages, emails. Derek's been pressuring her heavily. There are messages where she's expressing doubt, saying she can't do this to you. But he's convinced her it's the only way to save their family. Save their family by killing me? The words felt surreal coming out of my mouth. We don't have direct evidence of a murder plot yet. That's why we need your help. The lawyer who's supposed to meet with you Tuesday? Derek arranged that meeting. We checked the firm is legitimate, but Derek specifically requested an attorney who's known to be, let's say, flexible with ethical boundaries. Once you sign that POA, he'll have legal access to all your accounts. But that doesn't mean, Mr. Whitmore, we intercepted a package yesterday. It was delivered to your daughter's house, addressed to Derek. Inside were 20 fentanyl patches, purchased illegally online. Fentanyl is a powerful opioid. In the wrong dose, it's lethal. I gripped the edge of the table, feeling dizzy. You think he's going to poison me? We think he's planning to make it look like an accidental overdose. You're a doctor. You've had back surgery yourself 2 years ago. It wouldn't be unusual for you to have pain medication. A few patches applied while you're sleeping, or dissolved in a drink. You'd go into respiratory failure within hours. And with the POA already signed, Emily would be your legal representative, able to access the funds immediately. I couldn't breathe. This was my daughter we were talking about, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, who'd held my hand at her mother's funeral. Detective Santos leaned forward. Here's what we'd like to do. We want to set up a controlled situation where we can catch them in the act and get a confession. But I need to be clear, this will be dangerous, and it will be emotionally devastating. You'll have to face the reality of what your daughter has become involved in. What do you need me to do? Over the next few days, we developed a plan. I would go ahead with the hospital consultation I had scheduled for Friday morning. The VPD would plant an undercover officer as a security guard on my floor. They'd also substitute any beverages that were delivered to me, in case Emily or Derek tried to poison me there. The hospital room would be wired with cameras and audio equipment. The goal was to create a situation where I would be vulnerable, where Emily and Derek would think they had an opportunity, and then we'd get them on tape. Thursday night, I sat in my study, looking at family photos on the wall. Emily as a little girl, missing her 2 front teeth. Emily in her high school graduation gown. Emily on her wedding day, radiant in white. Where had it all gone wrong? My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Dad, I'm going to stop by VGH tomorrow morning to see you. Derek and I want to make sure you're okay. We've been worried about you since Mom died. Love you. I stared at that message for a long time. Love you. Did she mean it? Or was it just part of the act? I texted back. That's sweet of you, honey. See you tomorrow. Detective Santos had warned me that Emily would likely bring something coffee, a smoothie, something I'd consume. That's when they'd make their move. I barely slept that night. Friday morning, I arrived at Vancouver General at 8. The surgical consultation was real. I wasn't going to let innocent patients suffer because of my family drama. But by 10 o'clock, I was in a private room on the cardiology floor, supposedly reviewing patient files, but really just waiting. The undercover officer, who'd introduced himself as Mike, was positioned at the nurse's station. He looked the part, perfectly middle-aged, friendly face, the kind of security guard you'd never look twice at. At 10:47, my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Just arrived. Stopped at that coffee place you like. Got you a large dark roast, 2 sugars. Be up in a minute. My hands were shaking. Detective Santos, listening from an unmarked van outside, spoke through the tiny earpiece I was wearing. Remember, Mr. Whitmore. Natural reactions. Don't drink anything she gives you until Mike intervenes. I heard footsteps in the corridor. Emily appeared in the doorway, holding a coffee cup from Cafe Artigiano, my favorite spot. She looked tired, stressed. There were dark circles under her eyes. Dad, she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. How was the consultation? Good, good, I said, my throat tight. That's thoughtful of you to bring coffee. She set it on the small table beside my chair. I know how you hate hospital coffee. This is from Cafe Artigiano, just how you like it. I reached for the cup, playing my part. But before my fingers touched it, Mike appeared in the doorway. Excuse me, Dr. Whitmore, he said. We need you at the nurse's station for a moment. There's a question about one of the patients. Oh, I started to stand, reaching for the coffee. That's when Mike moved fast. His hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His voice dropped to an urgent whisper. Don't drink that. Please, sir. Pretend you're having chest pain, right now. I stared at him, and I saw Emily's face go white behind him. I clutched my chest, gasping. I feel... Someone call a code, Mike shouted, guiding me toward the bed. Dr. Whitmore's having a cardiac event. The room exploded with activity. Nurses rushed in. Emily backed toward the wall, her eyes wide with what looked like genuine panic. Or maybe it was fear of being caught. They rushed me to the ER on a gurney. Emily tried to follow, but Mike politely but firmly asked her to wait in the family area. As they wheeled me around a corner, Detective Santos appeared beside the gurney. We've got the coffee, she said quietly. Lab is testing it now. Emily's waiting in the family lounge. Derek just arrived. We've been tracking his phone. He's in the parking garage. Stay in the ER for now. Play it up. 30 minutes later, I was lying on an examination table in a curtained-off ER bay when Detective Santos returned. Her face was grim. It's fentanyl, Mr. Whitmore. 3 patches dissolved in the coffee. Enough to kill you twice over. If you'd taken even 3 sips, you'd be dead within the hour. I closed my eyes, feeling tears leak out. My daughter had just tried to murder me. What happens now? Now we need to get a confession. Emily's in the waiting room. Derek's with her. We have officers positioned nearby. Here's what I'm proposing. We tell them you're stable, but that we found something suspicious in your blood work. We ask Emily to come in to see you. You'll be wearing a wire. I need you to confront her. Get her to admit what she did. Can you do that? Could I? Could I look my daughter in the eye and ask her why she tried to kill me? Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, I can do that. They set me up in a private room with cameras hidden in the ceiling vents and a wireless microphone taped to my chest under the hospital gown. Detective Santos would be watching from the next room with 2 other officers. At 2:15 p.m., Emily was escorted in by a nurse. She looked terrified. Dad, oh my God, they said you had a cardiac event. Are you okay? I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was my daughter, but right now I was looking at a stranger. Someone who'd brought me poison in a coffee cup and smiled while doing it. Sit down, Emily. Something in my voice made her freeze. Dad? The doctors found something interesting in my blood work. Fentanyl. A massive dose of it. The only thing I consumed this morning was the coffee you brought me. Her face crumpled. I don't understand. Don't lie to me. My voice cracked. I know about the debt. I know about Derek's gambling. I know about the $2 million he owes to criminals. And I know you were going to let me die, so you could pay them off with my money. Emily's legs seemed to give out. She collapsed into the chair beside my bed, sobbing. I didn't want to. Dad, I swear to God, I didn't want to. Derek said they were going to kill us. They sent pictures of our house, of the kids at school. They said if we didn't pay by next week, they'd die. She broke off, hyperventilating. So you decided to kill me instead? I thought. Derek said you'd just go to sleep, that it would be peaceful, like Mom, and then it would be over, and the kids would be safe, and she looked up at me with red, streaming eyes. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I'm a monster. I'm a terrible person. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I looked at the kids, I wanted to die. But Derek kept saying it was the only way, that we didn't have a choice. That the door burst open. Derek stood there, breathing hard. He must have realized something was wrong. Emily, shut up. Don't say another word. It's too late, Derek, I said quietly. She's already told me everything. Derek's face twisted with rage. He started toward me. You stupid old man. Do you have any idea what you've done? Those people don't give second chances. Emily and I are dead now. Our kids are going to grow up as orphans because you couldn't just drink the damn coffee and make everyone's life easier. Make everyone's life easier? I repeated, stunned by his audacity. By dying? You're 63 years old. You've lived your life. You had a career, a wife, everything. What do you have left? You sit in that empty house feeling sorry for yourself. At least your death would have meant something. It would have saved your daughter, saved your grandchildren. Detective Santos and two uniformed officers burst into the room. Derek Morrison, you're under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Derek lunged for me, but the officers tackled him before he got close. As they handcuffed him, he was screaming, "This is your fault. You could have just signed the papers. You could have just helped us. What kind of father lets his daughter suffer?" They dragged him out, still shouting. Emily sat motionless in her chair, staring at her hands. "Emily Whitmore Morrison," Detective Santos said gently, "you're also under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." Emily looked up at me as they handcuffed her. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. "I know you don't believe me, but I do. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad Mike stopped you. I couldn't have lived with myself if—" She started crying again as they led her away. I sat there in that hospital bed for a long time after everyone left, staring at the wall. My daughter had tried to kill me. My son-in-law had orchestrated it, and somewhere in this nightmare, I had two grandchildren who were about to lose both their parents. The trial was 3 months later. Derek showed no remorse whatsoever. He actually argued in court that I should have been willing to die to save my family from financial ruin. The prosecution showed text messages where he'd manipulated Emily, threatened her, told her that if she didn't help him, he'd make sure she went to prison alone. Emily, on the other hand, pled guilty immediately. Her lawyer argued coercion, presented evidence of Derek's psychological abuse, the threats from the loan sharks. She took full responsibility for her actions, but explained the impossible situation Derek had put her in. The judge sentenced Derek to 20 years in prison, without possibility of parole, for 10 years. For Emily, the sentence was 8 years, with eligibility for parole after 5, if she completed rehabilitation programs and continued therapy. As they led Derek away, he turned and looked at me one last time. "I hope you enjoy your money, old man. Was it worth losing your daughter?" I didn't answer him, because the truth was, I didn't know. After the trial, I had some difficult decisions to make. Patrick and James both supported whatever I decided. Patrick was furious with Emily, but understood she'd been under tremendous pressure. James was coldly pragmatic. "She tried to kill you, Dad." Cut her off completely. But I couldn't forget that moment in the hospital room, when Emily had said she was glad I was alive. When she'd taken responsibility, admitted what she'd done was monstrous. That was my daughter talking, not Derek's puppet. I hired investigators to look into Derek's criminal connections. The gambling debt was real. He owed money to a Vancouver-based organized crime group that ran illegal casinos in Richmond. These people had a reputation for violence. The threats against Emily and the children were credible. It took me 2 months to track down the right people and negotiate, but eventually, I paid off Derek's debt. Not for Derek, for my grandchildren, so they could grow up without fear, without looking over their shoulders. But I didn't pay it from my estate. I liquidated some investments and paid it from a separate account, and I made sure Derek could never access any of my money. I revised my will completely. Emily was removed as a beneficiary. Instead, I set up trust funds for her 2 children, my grandchildren, Sarah and Michael. Each trust was worth $500,000, to be managed by James until they turned 25. There was one condition. Emily had to divorce Derek and complete a comprehensive therapy program addressing domestic abuse, financial coercion, and decision-making. If she did that, and if she maintained clean parole, the trusts would remain fully funded. If she reconciled with Derek or violated parole, the funds would be redistributed to Patrick and James's children. I also restructured the rest of my estate. $2 million went into educational trusts for Patrick's 3 children and James's 1 son. The house in West Vancouver went to Patrick, who'd always loved it. My investment portfolio was divided between Patrick and James, with instructions that they use some of it to help Emily's children if needed, but never Emily herself, unless I specifically approved it before my death. The remaining assets went into a charitable foundation in Margaret's name, focused on cancer research and supporting families dealing with terminal illness. 6 months after the trial, I went to visit Emily in the Women's Correctional Center in Surrey. It was the first time I'd seen her since that day in court. She looked different. Thinner, older, but also somehow more present. She wasn't hiding behind makeup or Derek's confidence anymore. When she sat down across from me in the visiting room, she didn't try to explain or justify what she'd done. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said simply. "I don't forgive myself. Every night, I lie in my bunk and think about what I almost did, what I put you through, what I put the kids through." "How are Sarah and Michael?" I asked. "Patrick brings them to visit once a month. They don't really understand why I'm here. I told them Mommy made some very bad choices and has to face the consequences." She wiped her eyes. "Patrick's been amazing. He and Lisa have basically become their parents. The kids are doing okay, considering." "I paid off Derek's debt," I said. Emily's head snapped up. "What? Dad? No. Not for you. Not for him. For Sarah and Michael. So they can be safe. The men Derek owed money to. They've agreed to leave your children alone." She stared at me, tears streaming down her face. "I don't deserve. You didn't have to. I did it because they're my grandchildren, and they're innocent in all of this. But Emily, you need to understand something. I love you. You're my daughter, and I always will love you. But I can't trust you. I won't trust you. Not after what you did." She nodded, sobbing. "I understand. I've set up trusts for Sarah and Michael. James will manage them. You won't have access to the money. There's a condition: you have to divorce Derek and complete therapy. Can you do that?" "I've already filed for divorce," she said. "Derek's been sending me letters from prison, trying to convince me this is all your fault, that we were right to try. I tore them up. I'm done with him, Dad. He destroyed my life. He made me into someone I don't recognize. Therapy isn't optional, Emily. You need help dealing with what you went through. And what you did. Promise me you'll do the work." "I promise. I'm already in group therapy here. It's helping. I'm learning how I let Derek manipulate me, how I lost myself." She looked at me directly. "I'm learning how to live with what I did. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself, but I'm learning how to be a person again, how to eventually be a mother again. That's all I can ask," I said quietly. As I drove home from that visit, I thought about Margaret. She'd been the heart of our family, the one who kept us all connected. After she died, we'd fallen apart. Emily had been vulnerable, lost, grieving. Derek had exploited that vulnerability, twisted it into something monstrous. But Emily had made her choices. Even under pressure, even afraid, she'd chosen to put poison in my coffee. She'd chosen to let me walk into that hospital room and almost die. Those choices had consequences. That night, I called Patrick and James on a three-way call. "I saw Emily today," I told them. "I've decided to keep the trust funds active for Sarah and Michael, conditional on Emily completing therapy and divorcing Derek. But she won't get anything directly from my estate." Patrick was quiet for a moment. "How did she seem?" "Broken. But maybe in a way that she can rebuild from. She's taking responsibility, at least." James, ever the lawyer, asked, "Are you comfortable with this decision, Dad? You don't owe her anything." "I know. But I owe those kids a chance at a normal life. And maybe, someday, Emily can be the mother they deserve. But that's on her now. I've done what I can." "We support you," Patrick said. "Whatever you decide, we're with you." After we hung up, I sat in Margaret's chair. I still thought of it as hers, and looked at our wedding photo on the mantel. 40 years we'd been married. She'd been gone for 2 years, but I still missed her every single day. "I hope I did the right thing," I said to her picture. "I hope you'd be proud of me." A year after Emily's sentencing, I was back at Vancouver General, this time for a real health concern. At 64, my ticker was finally showing its age. Nothing serious, but enough that my cardiologist wanted to keep an eye on things. I was sitting in the same waiting room where Emily had once waited while I supposedly suffered a cardiac event, when someone sat down next to me. It was Mike, the security guard who'd grabbed my wrist that day. "Dr. Whitmore," he said, smiling. "Good to see you. Real health concerns this time, I hope?" I laughed. "Just routine cardiology. How are you, Mike? Still undercover?" "Nah, I'm actually working hospital security for real now. Turns out I like the work." He paused. "I heard your daughter's doing okay in prison, making progress. You keep tabs? Detective Santos does. She liked you. Felt bad about what you went through." He stood to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, Dr. Whitmore, you did the right thing. With the grandkids, the trust funds, giving her a chance to rebuild. That's real grace. After he left, I sat there thinking about grace, about mercy, about the difference between forgiving someone and trusting them again. You can forgive without forgetting. You can love someone from a distance. You can give someone a second chance while still protecting yourself. Emily would be eligible for parole in 4 years. I didn't know if I'd be at that hearing or not. I didn't know if I wanted to rebuild a relationship with her, or if I was content to be a grandfather to her children, and nothing more. What I did know was this: betrayal changes you. It changes how you see the world, how you see the people you love. You can't go back to the innocent trust you had before, but you can move forward. You can choose to keep living, keep loving, keep hoping that people can change. Patrick stopped by my house that evening with his kids. My 3 grandchildren from his marriage, Katie, Jason, and little Emma, ran through the house the way kids do, bringing life and noise and chaos into rooms that had been silent for too long. "Uncle James is flying in next week," Patrick said as we watched the kids play in the backyard. "First time in 2 years. Says he wants to spend more time with family." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. Out of all this darkness, maybe some light was emerging. James reconnecting, Patrick and I growing closer, those grandchildren growing up safe and loved. "Have you thought about what you're going to say if Emily gets parole?" Patrick asked. "Every day," I admitted. "I don't have an answer yet." "That's okay. You don't have to. You get to take your time figuring out what forgiveness looks like for you." That night, after Patrick and his family left, I sat in my study and wrote a letter. Not to Emily, I wasn't ready for that yet, but to my grandchildren, all 6 of them, to be opened when they turned 18. I wrote about choices and consequences, about how love doesn't mean accepting abuse, and family doesn't mean tolerating betrayal, about how you can hold people accountable and still care about their well-being, about how grace is giving someone a chance they don't deserve, but wisdom is protecting yourself while you do it. I wrote about their grandmother, Margaret, and how she'd taught me that strength and compassion aren't opposites, they're partners. You can be strong enough to walk away from people who hurt you and compassionate enough to help them anyway. You can set boundaries and still leave the door open for redemption. Most importantly, I wrote about how they should never let fear or desperation drive them to hurt the people they love. How debt can be paid, mistakes can be fixed, problems can be solved, but you can't undo taking someone's life. You can't unknow what you're capable of when you cross certain lines. As I sealed the letter and put it in my safe deposit box, I thought about that moment in the hospital when Mike grabbed my wrist. How close I'd come to taking a sip of that coffee. How my life had hung on the thread of a security guard's quick reflexes and a son's worried phone call. I was alive because Patrick had been brave enough to voice his concerns, because James had been connected enough to get help, because Detective Santos had taken a potential case seriously, because Mike had acted in that crucial second. And I was still here, still breathing, still able to watch my grandchildren grow up, still able to see Patrick's kids graduate, James's son learn to ride a bike, Emily's children hopefully heal and thrive despite their parents' mistakes. 2 years later, I was having Sunday dinner with Patrick and his family when my phone rang. It was James. "Dad, Emily's parole hearing is next month. She asked if you'd be willing to come, to speak on her behalf." I set down my fork, my appetite suddenly gone. "What did you tell her?" "I said I'd ask you. No pressure. If you're not ready, that's valid. She understands." I looked across the table at Patrick, who'd obviously heard enough of the conversation to know what we were discussing. He gave me a slight nod. "Your choice." "I need to think about it," I told James. Over the next week, I thought about it constantly. I talked to my therapist, yes. I'd started seeing one after the trial, and it had helped immensely. I talked to Detective Santos, who told me Emily had been a model prisoner, completing every program available, working in the prison library, helping other inmates with their GED studies. I even talked to Emily's children, now 11 and 9 years old. They missed their mother. They understood she'd done something terrible, but they wanted her home. In the end, I decided to go to the hearing. Not because I'd fully forgiven Emily, I wasn't sure I ever would, but because I'd made a promise to give her a chance at redemption if she did the work. And according to everyone I'd talked to, she'd done the work. The hearing was on a gray November morning. Emily looked small in her prison uniform, her hair pulled back, no makeup, her face showing every line that 5 years of incarceration had etched there. When it was my turn to speak, I stood at the microphone and looked at my daughter. 5 years ago, I said, my daughter Emily tried to kill me. She put enough fentanyl in my coffee to kill me twice over. If not for the intervention of law enforcement, I would be dead. Emily kept her eyes down, tears sliding down her cheeks. That betrayal nearly destroyed me. It did destroy my ability to trust easily. It shattered my family. It traumatized my grandchildren. These are real consequences, real harm that can't be undone. The parole board members were watching me carefully, but I've also watched Emily take responsibility for what she did. I've read reports of her progress in therapy, her dedication to understanding how she got to that point and ensuring she never goes back. I've seen her cut ties with the person who manipulated her into attempting murder. I've seen her work to become someone her children can be proud of. I paused, gathering my thoughts. I can't speak to whether Emily will reoffend. That's for professionals to determine. What I can say is that I believe people can change. I believe my daughter is genuinely remorseful, and I believe that her children need their mother, provided she can be the mother they deserve. I looked directly at Emily. If this board grants you parole, Emily, you're going to face a world that knows what you did. You're going to have to rebuild relationships from scratch. You're going to have to prove, every single day, that you're not the person who put poison in her father's coffee. That's going to be hard. Maybe harder than prison. She nodded, still crying. But I think you can do it. I think you should get that chance. Not because you've earned forgiveness. I don't think you can earn that. But because grace means giving people what they haven't earned. And because your children deserve a mother who's whole and healed, if that's possible. I sat down, my heart pounding. Patrick, sitting beside me, squeezed my shoulder. The board deliberated for 40 minutes. When they came back, they granted Emily parole with strict conditions. Continued therapy, random drug tests, no contact with Derek, employment within 60 days, and supervised visits with her children for the first 6 months. Emily looked at me across the room, her eyes asking a question I wasn't ready to answer yet. 6 months after her release, Emily invited me to her apartment in East Vancouver, a small one-bedroom place where she lived alone, working 2 jobs to make rent. Patrick and Lisa brought Sarah and Michael every weekend, slowly rebuilding that relationship. I stood outside her door for a full minute before knocking. She opened it, looking nervous, wearing a simple sweater and jeans. Dad, thank you for coming. The apartment was sparse but clean, photos of her kids on every surface, a bookshelf full of self-help and parenting books, a journal on the coffee table. We sat across from each other, and for a moment, neither of us knew what to say. I don't expect us to be close again, Emily finally said. I know I destroyed that, but I wanted to thank you for speaking at my hearing, for the trust funds for the kids, for paying off Derek's debt so they'd be safe. You didn't have to do any of that. You're right, I said. I didn't have to. Then why did you? I thought about how to answer that. Because you're still my daughter, because those kids are my grandchildren, because holding on to anger was destroying me, and because your mother would have wanted me to give you a chance. She started crying. I miss Mom every day. Sometimes I think about how disappointed she'd be in me, and I can barely breathe. She'd be disappointed in your choices, I said carefully. But I think she'd be proud of the work you're doing now. I think she'd want you to keep going, keep healing, keep being a mother to those kids. We talked for an hour. About her therapy, her jobs, her relationship with Sarah and Michael, about the divorce from Derek, which had been finalized while she was in prison, about her plans for the future, simple plans, humble plans, a stable job, a bigger apartment so the kids could stay overnight, maybe, someday, college classes. When I stood to leave, Emily walked me to the door. Dad, do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me? Really forgive me? I looked at my daughter, this woman who'd tried to kill me, who'd broken my heart, who'd shattered my trust. And I saw someone who'd been lost but was finding her way back, someone who'd done something unforgivable but was learning to live with that and move forward anyway. I don't know, I said honestly. Some days I think I already have. Other days, I remember that moment when Mike grabbed my wrist, and I feel the anger all over again. Maybe forgiveness isn't a destination. Maybe it's something you have to choose. Over and over, every day. That's fair, she said quietly. But Emily, I'm glad you're out. I'm glad you're getting better. And I'm glad Sarah and Michael are getting their mother back. That has to be enough for now. She nodded. It is. It's more than enough. As I drove home, I thought about the years ahead, about Emily slowly rebuilding her life, about my grandchildren growing up with a mother who'd made terrible mistakes but was working to be better, about Patrick and James and me, learning to be a family again in this new configuration, about how betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the middle, the dark chapter before the slow climb back toward light. I'm 69 now. My health is declining gradually, as it does. In a few years, maybe less, I'll join Margaret. And when I do, my estate will be distributed according to the will I wrote after the trial. Trust funds for all 6 grandchildren, money for Patrick and James, the charitable foundation continuing Margaret's legacy. And for Emily, a letter, one I wrote 5 years ago, an update every year. A letter explaining why I made the choices I made, why I gave her a chance but protected myself, why I loved her but couldn't fully trust her, why grace doesn't mean ignoring consequences. A letter that ends with this: I forgave you as much as I was able. I hope that was enough. I hope you built a good life. I hope you were the mother your children needed. And I hope you never forgot that one moment, that second, when you put poison in my coffee so that you never let yourself become that person again. Because that's what I've learned through all of this. People can change, but change requires remembering who you were and consciously choosing to be someone different. Every single day. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. Grace isn't weakness. And family isn't an excuse for accepting betrayal. You can love someone and still protect yourself. You can give someone a second chance and still maintain boundaries. You can help someone rebuild their life without rebuilding your relationship with them. These aren't contradictions. They're the complex realities of being human, of loving imperfect people, of surviving betrayal, and choosing to keep your heart open anyway, even if just a crack. My name is Robert Whitmore. I'm a father who was almost murdered by his daughter, a grandfather who chose to protect his grandchildren even from their parents, a man who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is set someone free to fix themselves, even if it means letting go of who they used to be to you. And if my story teaches anything, I hope it's this: your life is worth protecting. Your boundaries are valid. Your hurt is real. But you get to decide what forgiveness looks like. You get to decide what grace means for you. And whatever you choose, whether it's walking away forever or opening a door to redemption, that choice is yours to make, and yours alone. No one else gets to tell you what you owe someone who hurt you. Not society, not family, not even the person who did the hurting. You owe yourself safety. You owe yourself peace. Everything else is optional, and that's enough.